Man, do I hate traffic. Sure would be nice if I could just, throw a Koopa shell or something to get people out of the way. Am I right? The light is green! Yes? Can you get out of my driveway?
I'm sure it comes as no surprise when I tell you that Mario Kart is the most popular Nintendo IP by a long shot. Over the course of the series' lifetime, Mario Kart has sold over 160 million units across both its portable and home console releases, with the game of today's discussion accounting for nearly 1/3 of those sales alone. With those numbers, this must be the best the series has ever been, right? Well, in most aspects, yes, but in a few others, not so much. And when I say a few, I really mean only a few. Welcome to episode 5 of Creating the Best Sequel, a show where we aim to take a deep dive into the design of our favorite games and discuss what could be done to create the greatest sequel possible. This episode covers Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, the enhanced port of the Wii U's Mario Kart 8 to the Switch that was unfathomably more successful, for reasons we are all well acquainted with already.
I'm so sorry they disrespected you.
Like I said, in most regards, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is the pinnacle of Mario Kart, at least so far, but there are still some things, albeit quite small, that I would like to see addressed in a potential sequel, and other things that I think could be added to expand and evolve the game beyond its current state, as sequels usually do. Well, most of the time. Let's talk about it.
Mario Kart 8!
The Mario Kart formula has remained relatively constant since the beginning. You race on a track of between 8 and 12 people, you collect items from item boxes throughout the track that can either benefit you offensively or defensively, you have coins that can increase your top speed, and you can lose a portion of those coins if you get hit by an item or fall off the track. Whoever finishes first wins, it's as simple as that, and you know what, I see nothing wrong with never changing this core formula, like, ever. I'm sure many people agree with me on that. This is the heart of the definition of Mario Kart, the essence of the series. It's not like it would even make sense to modify this design, at least not anytime soon.
Alright, now hold on. You obviously haven't heard my idea yet. Oh my god, what is it? Alright, so, you are aware of this handsome devil right here, am I correct? Yes, I am. Well, consider this. He's already in the game, but what if we took his shirt off? Holy shit! Now you're speaking my language!
Obviously, since the series' debut on the Super Nintendo, we've had our fair share of gimmicks and twists to this formula, some of which are still present today, like paragliding and underwater driving from 7, and some which aren't present, like the double driver mechanic from Double Dash. But as I said, these are gimmicks. They build upon the established mechanics to keep the whole thing feeling fresh, but anyone with elementary knowledge of game design is familiar with that strategy. I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that in a potential sequel, I don't want to see any major formulaic changes. Additionally, similar to the point I made in the Mario Maker 2 episode, in the discussion of a potential sequel to this game, I will not be suggesting new items, courses, carts, or drivers. Like I've mentioned numerous times before, the essence of a sequel is taking everything you did in the previous game and doing it better. Obviously, it's a lot more nuanced than that, but these types of additions are already a given anyway. It's not exactly productive to discuss them because they don't necessarily improve the game. They only expand upon what's already there. And don't get me wrong, that's completely fine, but I don't find it particularly riveting to sit here and go, they should add Dr. Goomba Tower as a driver. Maybe if this series was called Creating the Best DLC, that conversation would make more sense, but it isn't, and that name sounds stupid anyway. I want to start off by saying that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe feels good. Everything from the controls to the aesthetic design is extremely polished and is the result of years and years of experience with the franchise. In terms of the controls specifically, it's hard to point out any fundamental flaws with how they feel. I'm sure there are plenty of people who prefer the controls of insert previous game here, and my biased opinion would be inclined to prefer Mario Kart Wii's controls. Regardless, mechanically I don't see anything objectively wrong with how they feel in 8 Deluxe. However, the difference in controls across the variety of vehicles and the huge gap in utility for each vehicle that these differences bring about has been a point of discussion among fans, so I'd like to cover that here. One common topic of debate I have seen brought up is the idea of inside drifting versus outside drifting. In Mario Kart 8, inside and outside drifting only applies to bikes. Inside drifting, in simple terms, allows for much sharper turns, sliding towards the inside of the curve. On the contrary, with outside drifting, the drift feels much more loose or slippery, with the player sliding towards the outside of the curve, suggesting the center of gravity is near the rear of the vehicle. Obviously, the utility of inside drifting is being able to more tightly hug the corners of the track, allowing you to start drifting later than you would with an outside drifting vehicle. This will, however, decrease the amount of mini turbos you get while drifting, as charging one requires you to drift for a significant amount of time, usually more than it takes to cut a sharp corner. You'd think, since inside drifting bikes are able to cut corners much sharper while outside drifting ones are forced to hold the outside of the curve, that the lack of mini turbos would even out with the corner cutting, and I'm sure that this was the intention, but it's simply not the case in practice, and here's why. Along with this lack of mini turbos comes a lack of coins as well. This is because the coins in each track are laid out in a way that especially benefits outside drifting vehicles, with lines of them often set up in slight curves along large, long turns. Like I said, coins do increase your top speed, and getting to the maximum of 10 as soon as possible is very important in any race. Getting to this cap is much easier for outside drifters for reasons I already mentioned, and if inside drifters attempt to go out of their way to collect these coins as soon as possible, they will end up falling behind in a race in most cases, which essentially just ends up undermining the purpose of getting the coins in the first place. Granted, because the turns are sharper, mini turbos will charge slightly faster with inside drifting bikes over outside ones, so that point is still debatable, but I feel like this coins issue highlights a bigger problem with inside drifting bikes as a whole. Many times, at least to me, it seems as if the tracks were designed without inside drifting in mind, with many of the slighter and longer curves just not making sense to drift along using an inside drifting vehicle. It's not horrible by any means, but I can definitely personally feel a discrepancy there between the two types of drifters. These reasons, among others, highlight just how much of a disadvantage the player is put at using an inside drifting bike, giving them very little actual utility if your main goal is to win the race. In a potential sequel, I'd love to see this huge gap between the two types of bikes narrowed considerably. I believe that every kart and bike should have a relatively equal amount of benefits and drawbacks compared to each other, as making any category superior will discourage any creativity or diversity in playstyles. We can see this exact problem in practice in the previous entry in the series, Mario Kart Wii. In Wii, Funky Kong had the highest speed stat out of every single character in the game by a slight margin. Because of this, he was almost always used by high-level players, and was often paired with the Flame Runner bike for its superior drifting compared to other vehicles. Because the advantage given when using Funky Kong with this bike was relatively minuscule in the grand scheme of things, many players have grown to resent the Funky Flame Runner combo, labeling it as somewhat of a try-hard way of playing online or with friends.
Alright, Funky Kongs, let's settle down and get started. In last week's session, we talked about why it's wrong to be who we are. Hold on. This is Wii U Owners Anonymous, right? No sir, this is... Huh? There is no way... Damn it! I did it again!
Granted, because of the horrendous acceleration stat that came with this combo, its real utility showed in time trials, but that didn't stop it from being the most popular choice for online players anyway. People knew that he was just slightly faster than everyone else, and that was enough for them to want to use him over anyone else. It doesn't stop specifically at that combo though. Bikes in general were a significantly smarter choice in Mario Kart Wii because of one simple function: wheelies. At the cost of not being able to perform the highest tier of mini turbo, bikes are able to perform wheelies that give them a constant increase in speed. This is extremely useful on straightaways as you can just hold a wheelie to pull ahead of anyone who isn't using a bike. Karts are simply stuck driving normally down straightaways with no real alternative. Hopefully that illustrates the importance of balance in situations like these. Mario Kart has never been known to be a fair game, but I really don't think this has anything to do with fairness. Anyone could use the best loadout in the game, it's just more boring that way. So, in my opinion, it's much better to encourage different loadouts based on the player and their preferences, with no single configuration being the definitive best option. Moving on from the vehicles, let's talk about the tracks. Every new entry has brought about increasingly complicated track designs, making each race even more exciting than the previous games. Mario Kart 8 is no exception. The big gimmick of this entry was the addition of anti-gravity portions to each track, allowing drivers to drive sideways and upside down along twisting roads. In my opinion, this feature is nothing more than an aesthetic novelty, as driving through these sections doesn't feel much different than driving on normal roads, other than the fact that you can bounce off of other drivers for a small speed boost. Because of this, I feel that this entry didn't evolve on track designs nearly as much as previous ones did. Essentially, I would say that 8 is simply tracks from 7 but on steroids, which is good, don't get me wrong, but how about we think a bit bigger for the next entry? One thing I've always wanted to see in Mario Kart is tracks with more branching paths. I'm not just talking small shortcuts or little off-road sections, I'm talking about entire sections of the track that are easily accessible and equal to the alternative route that the player has a choice to take. Now, with the prospect of this change also comes the need for larger tracks. There's simply more road if you add branching paths, so this means that there's even more space for drivers to spread out. The biggest problem that occurs with separating the drivers into two paths like this is that it decreases the probability of the hectic action occurring that Mario Kart is so well known for. However, the solution to this problem goes perfectly in tandem with the first idea I have for an addition when it comes to a potential sequel. Say hello to Mega Races. These are special separate tracks that are much larger and usually longer than a normal track. To account for these larger areas, the driver count will be doubled so that 24 people can race at the same time. Mega racetracks will have multiple instances of branching paths, each with their own benefits and drawbacks. Each lap, certain properties of every path will change in context with the theme of the course. For example, one path could flood with water, turning what was originally a normal straightaway into a pool full of dangerous urchins. You would still be able to take this path, but it would obviously be more hazardous to do so, and depending on your situation, you may want to take the other path instead. These events would be random, meaning the player would need to make a split-second decision on which path is safer or more beneficial for them to take. One thing to note here is that the randomness of this may need to be addressed in time trials to prevent any RNG problems. If we wanted to take it even deeper than that, certain karts or bikes could benefit from taking certain paths. Vehicles and characters have a separate speed stat for when they are underwater, so whenever a water section was available, it would be best to take that path over the other. Or, since certain gliders decrease your air resistance, which means you go faster while gliding, it would make it more viable to take gliding sections. This is a huge oversimplification as to what actually could be done with this concept, but I hope you get the point. As many of you may already be thinking, this would take some serious balancing to get right, but I think it could create races that are even more hectic and exciting than we already have, all while keeping the formula feeling fresh. Not to mention it would be fun as hell. At least that's what I think.
Well, I think it would be boring. When? When what? When did I ask?
Other than that, like I said, tracks are an extremely polished and fleshed out aspect of the series at this point. They're fun to race on and beautiful to look at. The only reason I suggested Mega Races was to give an idea as to how the tracks themselves could be built upon and evolved. You've probably noticed the pattern by this point. There's really not that much objectively wrong with this game, but there are some things that could make it more interesting and add depth for more dedicated players, all while keeping the numerous casual players happy as well. While we're on the topic of tracks, I'd like to mention an idea I had in regards to expanding the amount of content and replayability of the normal tracks. In addition to the regular and mirror versions of the courses in the game, separate, more difficult, remixed versions of the tracks could also be added alongside them to increase the versatility and options of each race even further. Funnily enough, a Mario Kart game has already done this, but it's likely that most people don't even know about it. Let's take a look at the often forgotten mobile game, Mario Kart Tour.
Get a load of this guy talking about that piece of shit game.
Now, I'm scared of Mario Kart Tour just as much as the next guy, and while I do think its extreme gacha mechanics that are baked directly into the game's formula are not the greatest, we can still take some amount of inspiration from this title. So, almost every single track in Tour actually has 4 different variations, that being normal, reverse, trick, and reverse trick. Normal and reverse are pretty self-explanatory, with reverse versions of courses containing slight alterations or additions that make it possible to drive through the course backwards. The trick variants, on the other hand, are littered with ramps, boost pads, and other additions to make the races extremely hectic and usually more difficult. I was thinking in a sequel to 8 Deluxe, we could take this even further, adding a 5th variation that specifically aims to make the track more difficult, including more obstacles, more claustrophobic sections, more abundant item boxes, etc, etc. I honestly really enjoyed playing through these variations in Tour, so I'd love to see them added into a console Mario Kart game. The Grand Prix has been a staple of the Mario Kart series since the beginning as well. The concept is simple, you race through cups against CPUs that in combination contain every track in the game. Based on how you perform in these cups, you receive a trophy and an overall ranking of up to 3 stars. The Grand Prix has usually been cited as the Mario Kart series equivalent to single player content or a campaign. It also has usually been tied to unlocking characters, karts, and other aspects of the game. My idea would be to expand the single-player content offerings in a potential sequel by adding something of a story or adventure mode. This could be very similar to Diddy Kong Racing's adventure mode, where the player explores an open-air map that contains entrances to every track in the game. There are also numerous collectibles and secrets to find in this overworld that are completely supplemental to the tracks themselves. Additionally, the end of each world features a boss fight/race as a final challenge to the player. I think that this idea could be integrated perfectly into the realm of Mario Kart. You may have to get quite creative with the overworld considering the wide variety of tracks that are usually available, but I feel like that would make it even more interesting. Even further, I think this mode could also involve a concept similar to the Subspace Emissary from Super Smash Bros. Brawl, with different characters being playable depending on what is going on within the story. This could also create some more of those cool interactions between characters that have never interacted before, considering they come from separate games.
Now, if you think Mario's attractive, wait till you meet this Link guy. You know?
Not to mention the fact that it forces the player to learn how to play effectively with every character, and if the vehicle options are also limited based on the story, could teach and introduce players to different playstyles they may not have previously been aware of. Taking a look at a previous game in the series, Mario Kart DS, I would also love to see the missions mode from this game integrated in a potential sequel either outside this theoretical story mode as a separate option, or intertwined between races or as side challenges for players to take on for optional collectibles. The missions of DS were a separate single-player mode containing challenges that used and remixed existing tracks and battle stages into small bite-sized missions that the player could complete, with each level culminating in an original boss fight. I know that many people appreciate the missions mode of DS and would love to see it come back in a future game, and I believe integrating them into a story mode would be a great way for them to return. One aspect of Mario Kart that I have failed to mention so far, and that is often forgotten, is also something I'd love to integrate into this theoretical adventure, and that is the Battle Mode. Battle Mode was completely neglected in the original release of 8 for the Wii U, but luckily that problem was remedied with Deluxe. However, that's not my point here. Along with the races and missions that are a part of this story mode, there could also be battle challenges on every battle stage utilizing every type of battle to go along with them. Overall, I'd say the addition of this story mode would be a great opportunity to introduce new players to every aspect of the game and provide an entertaining, structured adventure for experienced players. Speaking of battle mode, there are a few things I'd like to say about the mode as it stands by itself as well. Battle mode has always sort of taken a back seat to normal races, so much so that I think many casual players have no idea it even exists.
Excuse me, sir, for $100. Have you ever heard of battle mode?
Well, I've never battle mode, but I've mowed my lawn normally. And it's really a shame, because before, even I sort of ignored battle mode, simply writing it off as some side thing that you play like once and then forget about. However, as I've played more of it, I've noticed just how much depth it actually has. It is still relatively small compared to normal races, there's no doubt about that, but that's exactly what I want to be different in a sequel. Don't get me wrong though, battle mode in 8 Deluxe is the biggest it's ever been, boasting 5 different types of battles, so this is in no way a negative critique on battle mode as it stands. I just think that in an ideal scenario, the gap between battle mode and normal racing in terms of their perceived relevance in game should be considerably smaller. How could this be done though? Well, I hate to say something as simple as this, but add more content. Give battle mode more than 8 courses to choose from. Give more customization options for each type of battle. Perhaps a Grand Prix counterpart could also be added to battle mode where trophies and ranks are given based on player performance. This could help to add a sense of progression for single players that battle mode really doesn't have. Like I already said, 8 Deluxe has already taken a huge step in the right direction in regards to increasing the prevalence of battle mode, but I feel what I just suggested could help to extend that even further. Now we run into another problem though. Simply increasing the amount of content in battle mode isn't necessarily going to increase people's interest in it, especially within the casual audience. So the entire effort is null and void if the core battle mode fanbase are the only people who end up playing it. Well, lucky for you, I already solved this problem in the previous section. Incorporating battle mode into the adventure mode would essentially make the introduction of this new and improved content inevitable for any player who decides to play through it. Another thing to think about though is the fact that some people have played battle mode and they simply just do not like it. This is why I would not make battle mode content necessary for the progression of the story. It could contribute to your progression, perhaps involving main collectibles also available in regular races that can be put towards progressing the story. However, you technically could completely ignore the battle mode sections if you wanted. I feel like I have a problem with how currency is handled in every Mario game that I talk about, but unfortunately this game is no exception. This may sound like an odd thing to say at first, and that's because it is. There really isn't a currency system in Mario Kart, and I would agree with you, except in the case of one tiny aspect of the game that isn't really explicitly explained to you. At the start of the game, every time you collect a total of 30 coins, a new kart loadout part will be unlocked, whether that be a body, wheels, or glider. Once you reach 450 total coins collected, a new part will be unlocked every 50 coins, and once you reach 1500 total coins collected, each new part will unlock for every 100 coins. 3100 total coins are required to obtain every part in the game, other than the exclusive gold parts, which involve different criteria. As you may have guessed, this is what I mean when I talk about currency in Mario Kart. Essentially, you are buying new parts with the coins you collect, you just don't get to choose which ones you unlock or in what order. Now, I don't necessarily see anything inherently wrong with this system, it's simple and you will eventually unlock every part just from playing the game, but I can't help but think there's an even better way to do this. I'm sure you see where I'm going here. If kart loadouts are present in the sequel to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, I would like to see a parts shop implemented that allows the player to choose which parts they want to buy at any given time. Different parts could be unlocked to buy in this shop throughout the player's progression, but I think many people would appreciate the freedom of choice that they can get through a shop that wasn't available with the current system. But the shop won't stop just at kart loadout parts either, no siree. Let's go back and take a look once again at Mario Kart Tour.
Oh my god. He is still talking about it!
Alright, come on man, just give it a chance.
No! Why would you even say that? You know what? I got something for you right here. Pocket, real quick.
If we look past the vicious monetization of this game and check out the characters obtainable through said monetization, I think another idea involving the shop becomes painfully apparent. Mario Kart Tour has over 140 playable characters, but it's technically not even close to that number in reality. Obviously, you've got all the normal characters you would expect in a Mario Kart game, and then you've got the color variations of some characters like Yoshi and Shy Guy, which we already have in 8 Deluxe, but what I really want to look at is the high-end drivers. Many of these drivers are simply characters of lower rarities wearing different outfits. There are alternate appearances for Mario, Peach, Daisy, Rosalina, Yoshi, Luigi, Toad, Toadette, and more. Obviously, they have them as separate characters because, well, money, but in terms of a sequel to 8 Deluxe, what if these alternate appearances could be bought in the coin shop and applied to characters you already have? This would be yet another way to give players the freedom of choice when it comes to what they do with their coins, and it also adds another completionist aspect for players who are interested in content of that nature. I could go on and on about the possibilities of this coin shop, but I think I've made the point I wanted to make. Besides, the two ideas I mentioned would be more than enough to make the shop feel substantial, at least in my opinion. Like I said at the beginning and multiple times throughout, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is such a polished and refined game that fundamentally it's quite difficult to point out many flaws. That's really why I spent most of this discussion suggesting additions that will evolve the game past what it is now without modifying this tried and true formula that has worked so well for them so far. Now, this is honestly just my opinion, but the only true problem I saw was that lack of balancing between different vehicles that I've already mentioned, and even that may be considered negligible in the grand scheme of things. But hey, if you've ever heard me bitch about games before, you'll know I love pointing out negligible things just for the sake of it. Now, many people may be wondering why I never mentioned item balancing or the issue of rubber banding in races against computers. I am aware of this, and I too have gotten frustrated after holding first the entire race and right before the finish line being barraged with every item under the sun. However, that exact scenario is the essence of Mario Kart just as much as getting all your stars stolen from you right before the end of a game is the essence of Mario Party. It's a game meant to be played with friends, and those types of things are exactly what makes the game fun. It's what still allows less experienced players to have fun with more experienced players. At its core, Mario Kart is a very casual game. There are obviously elements that add depth to it that I have already talked about, but the fact that it's so easy to pick up and play by anyone is what drives me to make that claim. If you don't want the game to be unfair, you can always play time trials or shut off items in a custom versus race. It's not like you're stuck with the unfair option, but many people prefer the former, especially when it comes to playing with friends. With that said though, I think I've covered everything I want to cover involving Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. The unique thing about this game in the context of creating the best sequel is that it is probably the game with the highest probability of getting a sequel by quite a wide margin. I mean, come on, it's Mario Kart. There's no way it isn't getting a sequel. So, when that time comes, we can see if any of these ideas or improvements actually come to fruition. But until then, that's all I have for now.
Alright, now what is this? Oh my god. I park in his driveway without asking a mere 17 times, and sometimes threw large rocks at his dogs. And he thinks it's necessary to serve me a restraining order? People are crazy. Oh. That must be the new couch. Yup, right in here, fellas. Keep going. You're good. You're good. Dude, can you pull your pants up? You're good. You're good. Ah. This is nice. So, did you and Link ever get to hook up?